Non-Monogamy Help is a podcast where your questions about open, non-monogamous or polyamorous relationships are answered. Our host, Lola Phoenix, will consult a licensed therapist with over a decade of experience to address your problems. Names and locations have been changed or censored to keep your questions anonymous. You're listening to Non-Monogamy Help, the podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 57 of the Non-Monogamy Help podcast. I'm Lola Phoenix. Please send your questions to nonmonogamyhelp@gmail.com and they'll either be read in the podcast or the column anonymously. I will say for this episode, it is extremely hot when I'm recording. It probably won't be hot when I'm releasing this, but it does mean that there will be a fan noise in the background and probably a lot of horrible background noise, and I apologize profusely for it right at the moment. Anyway. Yes, if you want to read the columns and listen to the podcasts, go to nonmonogamyhelp.com, subscribe to our newsletter by going to go.nonmonogamyhelp.com/email, and follow us on Twitter at nonmonogamyhelp. If you want to support the columns and the podcasts, please consider becoming a patron. Even $1 a month helps support the daily running of the columns and the podcasts. And it's just a general vote of support that helps me know that you appreciate what it is that I'm doing. So yeah, you can do that by going to patreon.com/Lola Phoenix. If you donate $5 or more a month, your name, with your permission, of course, will be read at the end of the podcast. Let's get to this week's discussion question. If this is the first time you're hearing an episode, every week before I read the letter, I put forth a discussion question that you can use with your friends, partners, metamours, anyone that you want to get to know. I also answer it myself briefly to give you a little bit of context. This week's discussion question is, what is a gift that you've been given that's made you cry? Which even though this is kind of, I don't know, whenever you ask a question like, what is something that's made you cry? I feel like that's a bit of an intense question, but it's also kind of a sweet question. And for me, it's a little straightforward and a little simple. Once I was given flowers, and it made me cry because no one had given me flowers up until that point. So, yeah. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward, and yeah, it made me cry. So your story might be a little bit more interesting than mine, so yeah. What is a gift that you've been given that made you cry? Let's get to this week's letter. Hello, I'm a 27-year-old bisexual female who has been in a monogamous relationship for almost 2 years, and we have been close for almost 5 years. We are both Aquariuses and born in the same year, 2 days apart. We have been traveling homeless together for years and finally got together. We bonded right away because we are so much alike. After almost 2 years, we recently met a girl who is really cute and down to earth. Me being bisexual, I want to have sex with a woman, and the way I see it, if I'm in a relationship with a man, if I have sex with a woman, so does he. So I met a girl who accepts both of us, and we both like a lot, but she had a boyfriend at the time. She's now single, so recently we fooled around one time. 2 days later, they decided they want her in our relationship. I instantly felt hurt. I agreed out of my love for him and out of curiosity because I've never been in a polyamorous relationship. But also, I told him that I don't know how it will go or how I will feel, being that I'm very insecure and emotionally unpredictable. I believe that I have borderline personality disorder. So I constantly am either very mad, very sad, or very happy. This has been going on for a month now, and they are constantly in each other's space, always making out or loving on each other, or finding ways to be alone, but I am not getting the same love or affection. It feels that me and her are sharing him. I'm fine when we are all together, or when me and him and with me and her are together, but when they are alone, which is a lot of times, they are constantly running to the store together, or going to take a nap together, or finding any way they can to be alone, and it leaves me sitting in the living room alone. Every time I feel very upset and often lash out or cry. I try to vocalize my feelings to them, and somehow I'm selfish or I need to get over it, that I'm just insecure and I need to calm down. The last 3 days I've been asking him to have alone time with just me, alone time with my partner that I have not had for the last 2 years, and we work at home, so when she's at work, we are working. The second she gets home, he spends the entire time following her all around. We live at her house until we find our own place. So I've been trying to get him alone for 3 days. I've been on Shark Week for about 4 days, so they have been having sex without me since I started. We also switch off who sleeps at night together. I asked if we could have some time on day 1. He said yes after work. She's at work, and then once we got work done, she requested he spends time with her, so he does. I'm left sitting alone. I got upset, and they told me that I'm being irrational and need to stop. I cry. I'm still alone. We all go to bed together. Day 2, she's still at work. I ask again. He says after work, so we work until 7 p.m. We finally are done, and she asks if he will go drive with her to a friend's house, and he does again. I'm on the back burner, sitting here alone. He tells me when he gets back we will, and he promised me the second day that we would, and we never did. Me and him go to bed, and I try to have sex. He lays there like a dead fish, no effort. I got upset and told him that he could at least pretend he is enjoying this, and he said she's sleeping and he doesn't want to be loud. He told me to get off of him, and we went to bed. Day 3, I asked to spend some time, just us. He says yes. After finishing working, and we fall asleep. When we wake up, I ask again. He gets irritated and says I'm bothering him. At 2 a.m. they go to bed together. I ask them not to have sex until he keeps his promise. They get irritated but agree. Today is day 4. Me and him slept in until she got home. I didn't ask again today. Yesterday he mentioned in front of her that I'm bothering him about it, and she chimed in that if I leave him alone, he might try harder. We woke up. He instantly went into the living room to give her attention and didn't even say good morning to me. She took a nap after work. Hours later, still nothing. I took a shower with him. We tried for a whole 2 minutes. He got soft. We got out of the shower, and he said after we got out of the shower, but she's sleeping, so she wakes up and she asks him to shower with her. They have sex even though we have not still, and he tells me it's okay, don't get mad, this is what you always do. So they fuck, and it's 3 a.m. and we still haven't. She's now going to bed, which means he won't want to. They're talking about how we should try again in the shower, and they don't want to mess on the futon. I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm being ran over. It was my relationship to begin with. She has made no effort towards me, but is infatuated towards him. Before we get to this week's answer, I'm going to quickly plug this episode's sponsor, BetterHelp. Quite often in a lot of my columns and podcasts, I encourage people to seek a polyamory-friendly therapist. And for a lot of people looking locally for that kind of a therapist is really, really difficult, especially now with a global pandemic happening. So the good thing about BetterHelp is that you can find therapists online that you can send messages to at any time of day. And they do offer some financial aid. You can get 10% off of your first month by using the promo code Non-Monogamy Help, or going to betterhelp.com/non-monogamy help. So check it out, have a look online, do use the promo code or the URL if you want to try it. That's non-monogamy help, or going to betterhelp.com/non-monogamy help, no hyphens. And let's get to this week's letter. So, okay, there's a lot going on here. Honestly, why are you with these people? I want to be delicate about this situation, but it's really, really horrible. This is a really horrible situation. Really horrible. You're being treated terribly here. I know that there is a kind of midway point between, people can overreact, people can have very insecure, very instant emotional reactions to things, especially in polyamory, especially when there's this attempted triad situation and it feels like there's not a balance of time being spent between both of the people. But you don't respond to that by gaslighting somebody. So it can be possible that two types of realities exist where, yes, this person is having an intense emotional reaction, that maybe they could learn to regulate themselves a little bit more and therefore not react so emotionally to the situation because they are in a situation where they're actually safe and they're thinking they're not safe, while also, yes, maybe we need to have a bit more of a talk about things and work things out. You could be in a situation where this whole entire situation could be different, and he could be spending equal amounts of time with you as he would with this person, and you still get very upset. He still would be unjustified in saying that you're irrational and that you just need to get over it. That's not an acceptable response, even if you are being irrational, because people don't regulate their nervous systems or learn to calm down or learn to trust or learn to feel safe with people who are basically telling them that they are being ridiculous. That's not a response that helps anybody come to terms with the situation. And that may be how he feels, and it may be frustrating for him, and that's fine too. But in this situation in particular, you're not overreacting at all. You're basically being ignored. You're basically being completely rejected constantly, and a certain amount of rejection will happen in any relationship. Most people are not gonna always match up exactly when it comes to wanting to spend time together, when it comes to having sex. Like, two people aren't always going to have matching identical desires, so rejection is normal and will happen. That is fine. However, when you're constantly being rejected, not only for sexual things but also just for time spent with somebody, that is going to impact you, and you are going to be upset by that, and that is perfectly valid. And I think that the things that you need to ask yourself, first and foremost, do you want to be with someone who you have to beg for them to spend time with you? And I feel this so hard, because I don't know what kind of environment that you grew up in, or what kind of situations you were around, but for me, I always felt like if somebody wasn't calling me names or beating me up, they were a good partner, and that's what a good partner was. And I always thought that anything that I wanted was an add-on. Anything that I wanted wasn't standard or acceptable. And so I had, not this situation, but I had a similar situation where I was with somebody that I felt like every time I tried to ask them to spend time with me or hang out with me or anything, they would react with disgust or frustration, or they just obviously didn't want to spend any time with me. And because it wasn't an overt rejection or an overt dumping, I put up with that for a very, very long time, because I thought maybe if I just asked them right, or hit them at the right time, or if I blamed myself for that reaction instead of realizing, hey, do I want to be with somebody who isn't enthused to spend time with me? No, I don't. So really think about that. You're sitting there, and even when it comes to sexual situations, you're like, he could pretend to enjoy it. Do you want someone who's pretending? Do you really, really want that? Do you want someone who is with you out of some type of emotional manipulation or guilt, and who is pretending to like you? Do you really, really want that? You don't want to be around somebody who is only spending time with you because they promised. And all of the rules and situations, like when you're asking them not to have sex because he hasn't had sex with you and he promised, well, I totally get that. You're not going to be able to fix his shitty behavior by restricting what they do together. And it's not her responsibility or her fault that your boyfriend is behaving in this way, but she's also not helping by basically contributing to your gaslighting, by basically saying, well, maybe if you left him alone, he would try harder. Bullshit. Obviously, okay, it's fine for him to feel bothered by you if that's how he feels. Okay, he feels that way. But equally, you need more time with him. And if he doesn't want to give you that, then he could also do something about that. And he's not. Instead, he's telling you that you're irrational, that, he keeps promising, we'll do that, we'll spend time this time, we'll spend time. He's not being a grown-up about it and going, I don't want to spend this time with you. He could say that overtly to your face. Instead, he's just pushing it off, and then basically saying that you're doing it wrong, and that's why he doesn't want to spend time with you. Bullshit. Ask yourself if these are the kind of people that you want to be in a relationship with. I know you've clicked with this person. You've been together for 2 years. Hopefully he hasn't spent the entire relationship being this way, but even if he hasn't, he is now showing a side of himself that is really not great. If there's any side of himself that's basically going to ignore you or treat you poorly, then do you really want to be with this person? I think that there is an element and a part of you say you think you have borderline personality disorder, there probably is definitely things for you to work on in terms of feeling more secure. But this is like a perfect example of when I talk about how you can be the most secure person in the entire world and have the best self-esteem in the entire world, but if you're with someone who is treating you poorly, you're still going to feel like crap. There's no amount of self-love and self-care that's going to make up for being in a situation where someone is completely ignoring everything and not treating you right, which is what is happening here. There, of course, is an element where, you have some anxious attachment stuff going on where you could work on that, but you need to work on that in an environment where you're with someone who actually wants to be attached to you and someone who actually wants the best for you. You can't fix that in a situation with people who don't want the best for you, who don't care about you. There's a brilliant piece about, I don't know if you're familiar with nonviolent communication, but it's a whole way of phrasing things that's supposed to be really, really helpful. And someone has pointed out how with nonviolent communication, you assume that everyone who is communicating doesn't mean any harm, and how nonviolent communication can actually help abusive and horrible people because they do mean harm. And when you assume that they don't mean harm, that is actually giving them a benefit of the doubt you shouldn't give them. So you could work on all of these parts of yourself, but you can't do that in this environment. This is terrible. Like, I'm not saying he has to have sex with you every time you ask him to. I'm not saying he has to drop everything to spend time with you, but he needs to be better at communicating that he doesn't want to and be more honest about that if that's the case. So then you can make a decision, all right, do I really want to be with someone who doesn't want to be around me? Yuck. This is such a bad situation. I feel so bad for you because you're sitting here begging for time for someone and begging for attention from someone who is just like telling you not to get mad at because he's not meeting your needs. And he's also, this is like one of the most painful aspects that you can have in polyamory, in my opinion, and in my experience, is seeing your partner give something to somebody else that you want from them that they refuse to give to you. That hurts so much. That is so shit. And it's so painful. And you're sitting here watching him basically give time to her and give none to you. And that's, don't be in this situation. Like, honestly, that's my best advice. Leave both of them. Both of them. This clearly isn't a triad situation. You didn't even want to be in it to begin with. They just decided that this was a triad relationship, and no effort has been made on her part to form any kind of bond with you. So just leave this situation. It's such a bad situation in so many ways that you deserve much, much better than this. I feel so bad for you. This is horrible. You don't deserve to be treated this way. This is absolutely terrible. These people, I'm sure that there are like obviously positive sides to their personalities, but this is a truly despicable way to treat somebody. So to recap, ask yourself if you really want to be with someone who doesn't want to be with you and who puts off being with you, who complains about being with you, who responds to your distress with annoyance and with gaslighting behavior, basically telling you that you're irrational. You can acknowledge and validate someone's feelings in the moment, even if they aren't rational. If you feel like, I think you're going to leave me, okay, you can, as a partner, go, it's okay that you feel that way, and I see that you feel that way. Here is why I'm not going to leave you. Like, this is what I feel, and that is a helpful response. Saying you're irrational and you're just jealous and you're just insecure and you just need to get over it. That is not a helpful response, regardless of whether or not someone is actually under threat of their partner leaving them. That's not helpful regardless. Ask yourself if you want to be with someone who responds to your distress in that way, because that is rubbish. And then, last but not least, you deserve to be in a better situation than this, and you should absolutely leave because you didn't want to be in a polyamorous relationship. This isn't really a polyamorous relationship, in my opinion. I'm not trying to be all no true Scotsman or anything, but this isn't... If you didn't consent to it and you felt forced into it, it's one thing to try polyamory and I think that you were open to the concept, but it just doesn't sound like this was actually polyamory. It just sounds like he wanted to be with this person. Polyamory isn't cheating with permission. That's not what it is. This isn't a situation that I would describe as polyamorous. This is highly unethical, and it's hurting you, and you shouldn't have to deal with that. You should find someone who responds to your distress with empathy and compassion, who wants to spend time with you and who is excited to spend time with you. That's what you deserve. You deserve someone who is ecstatic about spending time with you, and you can find that, and you will find that, but not with these two people. So yeah, I hope that helps, and good luck. Thank you for listening to episode 57 of Non-Monogamy Help. If you want to be awesome, you can donate to our Patreon. Donating $5 or more means your name, with your permission, will be read at the end of the podcast. This week's current patrons are Laura Boylan, Chris Albery Jones, Juke, and James Wartell. If for whatever reason you can't become a patron because life happens, and I know that not everyone has the budget for that, you can take just 5 minutes, log into iTunes, and rate and review the podcast. That would be really, really helpful. If you don't have time to write a review, or you don't know what to say, or you find that kind of thing awkward, that's fine. You can just rate it. That is also really helpful. It just gets the podcast out there on some of these charts, and yeah, I would really, really appreciate that if you have 5 minutes to spare. So yeah, that's all for this week. You will get a new column next Friday and another podcast episode in a fortnight. Thank you so much for listening. You've been listening to Non-Monogamy Help. Our podcast music has been provided by Chris Albery Jones at albery-jones.com, and the art was made by Dom Jung at domduong.com. Thank you for listening.